This is PTV World. I am Syed Shabahat Ali and you're watching Fault Lines. This has been a very engaging month for the observers of international geopolitics. The Middle Eastern region is still simmering with conflict. The escalations between Iran and Israel are on an unprecedented level. For the first time in its history, Iran has directly engaged military targets inside Israel, and in return, Israel has also claimed to have some attacks. But all of this has started from April the 1st, when inside Damascus, an Iranian consulate was targeted by Israel, killing multiple Iranian officials. Let me tell you that it's not only Damascus, it's not only Syria, but Lebanon and Iraq are also facing the brunt of Israel's wrath at the moment, as Israel is engaging on multiple fronts to perhaps solidify its actions against the people in Gaza. In the post-attack retaliation, Iran on 13th of April launched 300 missiles and drones towards Israel, out of which 90% were intercepted in time, but at least 10% hit the target that Iran wanted to essentially engage. This is quite a concerning moment for many observers of international politics. And then on April 19th, Israel also made a claim to engage several targets inside Isfahan, which Iranian side does not agree to. Where all of this is leading towards, is it a game of optics, or actually Middle East is moving toward a larger crisis? To talk about this very pertinent subject, my first guest in today's program is Syed Muhammad Ali. He's a geopolitical analyst, and he's going to help us to understand the prelude of this conflict. Syed Muhammad Ali, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
First of all, tell us about Iranian side keeping a silence on the claims of attacks that have been made by Israel and have been endorsed by the United States side as well.
I think the primary reason and motive, as you mentioned, behind the Israel targeting the Iranian state in Damascus seems to be to divert the world's concern and international attention to the massacre being carried out in Gaza Strip, which has led to the death of 25,000 people. So the motive seems to distract the international attention away from that massacre towards a greater international security challenge that a regional conflict between Iran and Israel could attract. But it seems that the Iranians have calculated the real motive clearly. That's why, although they wanted to give a clear signal to Tel Aviv that if they cross the red line, then there will be punitive consequences, which they, showcased in terms of a direct and large-scale ballistic missile, cruise missile, and drone attack on Israel. However, once the Israelis have retaliated in return, the response from Tehran has been cautious and wise enough not to escalate the tensions further, because they do not want perhaps deprive the Palestinians from the attention and concern and the condemnation that the Israelis truly deserve.
Ali, 90% of the missiles or the rockets fired toward Israel were intercepted, and few also engaged the target that Iran was essentially trying to engage. Now, many in the West would say that this was a half-hearted effort by Iran, perhaps something to show to the world what they can do in a worst-case scenario, but not actually trying to escalate this war to the situation to an all-out war. How would you see this development?
I think the attack by the Iranians against Israel is significant in several ways beyond the tactical military objectives. It is true that despite the large scale of weapons used, it did not cause a large scale and significant damage to the Israeli military capabilities. However, there are three things which I think Tehran has gained. And the first one is obviously the consolidation of its own government and political system and quietening the critics and opponents within the country. The secondly, it has emerged as a willing and capable counterweight in the geopolitics of Middle East against the expansionist and hegemonic state of Israel. And thirdly, it has demonstrated that if Iran is not a fair game, and it is not like other states like Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, which are regularly attacked by Israelis. And once Tel Aviv crosses the red line, there will be consequences. So it has created a new normal as well, that Iran is different from all these countries, and Tel Aviv has to make calculations about the consequences of attacking Iran clearly. And most significantly, once the American, French, and British came to the assistance of Israel in shooting down the Iranian projectiles, it also helped Tehran identify and better understand the planning, the strategy, the tactics, the training, and the operational strategy of Israel, which could be useful in future regional conflicts.
Ali, also Iran gave sufficient time to the US, to the UK, to the allies of Israel to prepare for the defense. They could actually move their naval forces, their naval ships in the directions where they could actually help Israel to stop these attacks the projectiles coming from Iran. So do you think United States will have no choice but to defend Israel in case things go wrong from this point on?
I think it's true that Iran forewarned diplomatically that it wanted and it had the capability to attack Israel, and there were enough days for Israel to redeploy and improve its posture in terms of air defense capabilities and bring in reinforcements from America, UK, and France as well, which played a very important role in shooting down many of the Iranian projectiles on the Jordanian airspace before they entered the Tel Aviv. But I think it also proves that the real objective of Iran was not to cause significant escalatory military damage on the Israeli military, which could force the Israeli leadership and military to escalate further to maintain their self-respect and popularity and yield to the domestic public pressure. But the real objective was psychological, to create a new normal, that Iran is not like other countries to be browbeaten, and also in the psychological domain, signal that it will retaliate, it has the capacity and the will to retaliate. And thirdly, most importantly, in terms of geopolitics, establishing itself that in the entire Middle Eastern region is the only willing and capable counterweight to the Israeli rise militarily and in other ways as well.
Ali, how do you see the developments of 19th of April? Something surprising happened. On one end, it's the United States officials telling us that Israel has attacked or engaged multiple targets inside Iran. On the other side, it's Iran that's saying nothing has went wrong, and then Israel not being able to bring any evidence of an attack. Do you think it's something that is being demonstrated for the sake of optics? as Netanyahu's popularity is coming down with each passing day? Or do you think this is something that Iran is trying to brush under the carpet?
Israeli reaction was symmetrical but not proportionate, which indicates that Israel also was primarily motivated by domestic pressure and the psychological need of its military for to save its face and also repair the credibility of its deterrence. That these are the main motives. They also were careful in the target selection not to directly attack any of the nuclear, civilian, political, or major installations, which would force Iran to also retaliate in a harsher way. So I think this also means that this geopolitical and ideological conflict and contest between Tehran and Tel Aviv is likely to continue, but both countries are careful not to escalate it in a manner in the military domain to cause unacceptable damage or provocative escalation on each other. But they want to primarily embarrass the other side politically and shock it psychologically and also isolate it diplomatically. One point I just wanted to add, notwithstanding the military significance of this exchange, it is true that the Western powers and allies supporting Israel are willing to impose very strict and harsh economic sanctions on the entities which are involved in the production and procurement of drones and missiles in order to further increase the cost of this Iranian attack. So I think the diplomatic and economic costs of this exchange is one domain in which the Western powers are standing besides Israel and are willing to increase this cost on Iran, notwithstanding the negligible military damage that this exchange has caused on both countries.
Ali, what ideally would be Joe Biden thinking at the moment amid all of this happening in the Middle East? This is an election year for him, and as I was listening to many commentators in the West, it's been a PR disaster for the US as well to support Israel this far in all of that has happened in Gaza. Now, if Israel start hitting targets outside Gaza, if this continues and the war has an spillover effect to other neighboring countries, how would the United States or the President of the United States would look into it?
I think there are very clear political and national security reasons why US was really concerned not to allow this crisis to escalate much further. One factor is the domestic politics of the US and the upcoming elections, because the Democrat administration is cognizant of the loss of political capital and soft power in supporting Israel against an unpopular attack on Gaza, and it is worried about losing the non-white Caucasian vote within the U.S. in the upcoming election. And any further escalation and expansion of this conflict would have sort of sucked Washington into another conflict, which would also be costly for the Biden administration in the upcoming election. So that's the political motive. The second is the strategic motive that in the U.S. national security planning, the order of priority is that they view China as the main challenger at the global level, whereas they view Russia as a major threat in the European theater. So they also see the sustenance of Ukrainian military capability and war effort as a U.S. national interest. So another conflict, if it expands in the Middle East, would have overstretched the U.S. defense supplies, industry, attention, and defense posture, which would have been disturbing in balancing the rising China and more assertive Russian power in different theaters. So that is another reason why the U.S. military was also reluctant to yield to all the expectations and demands of Israel and were helpful in trying to dissuade, pressurize Tel Aviv that any further escalation would be a unilateral decision by Israel, and US will help it only defend itself, but will not be part of any aggressive measure against Iran.
Thank you very much, Syed Muhammad Ali, for being guest in our show.
But
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break and we'll join you back with second segment of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like every conflict, this conflict is also multidimensional in nature. While we have seen how things are being viewed from the broader perspective, it's very important to understand why this escalation of hostilities is taking place to begin with, and what Iran is expected to do, or what is the Iran's perspective toward these crises, why Iran finds itself in such a difficult position, and how Iran might look into responding to the crisis if the situation keeps unfolding as far as this crisis is concerned. To talk about this very pertinent subject, I have Dr. Qandil Abbas, who is an independent analyst and an expert of Middle East. Dr. Qandil Sahab, I welcome you to the show.
Shabahat for having me.
Doctor, first things first, so how do you look into this development when I say Iran for the first time has made a direct strike inside Israel? Perhaps this has not happened in the past, and perhaps this was not something that Israel was expecting.
I think Iran and Israel have been in confrontation with each other indirectly since 1979 of Iranian Islamic Revolution. And till now, they have never confronted directly with each other. But this is the first time that Israel has committed aggression against Iran by attacking Iranian consulate in Damascus. And after that, Iranian supreme leader promised that Iran will retaliate directly. And we know that after 2 weeks, Iran directly responded through true promise operation, and their attack was in fact unprecedented, and it has came out as a game changer, because I believe after this direct confrontation we may expect two consequences. First, direct Iranian attack can create deterrence, and it may have positive consequences that in future no regional country will miscalculate Iranian military power. But secondly, in case Israel is retaliating and attacking Iran, I believe that this will have serious consequences for not only the region, for world as well, because the whole region will become and will indulge into the war, and that can provide, unfortunately, base for third world war as well.
As you have rightly pointed out, I would want to take it forward. Don't you think that Israel has been dreaming to pull Iran into a larger war or a larger crisis, as they're afraid of Iran becoming a nuclear power, becoming a nuclear threat? We have seen that the talks with regards to Iranian nuclear program have not been very successful. The sanctions have not been lifted, and Israel's recommendations have always been on the hostile side. So don't you think that it was an effort, it was a ploy to pull Iran into a larger conflict, where for a power like the United States, there's no other choice but to actually have a direct confrontation with Iran?
We know that both Israel and Iran are ideological states, and these ideologies are not limited to themselves, and they are claiming that their ideologies will dominate the world. So this is, and directly we can say that this is a war of ideologies. So Israel was having the concept of and the plan of Greater Israel. And after Iranian Islamic Revolution, Zionist leaders are considering that Iranian Islamic Revolution is a serious threat to their plan for Greater Israel. That is why I think they have directly and indirectly confronted with Iran, but Iran never attempted to have direct confrontation with Israel. Uh, in recent years, Iran is trying to avoid direct confrontation with Israel, but through Iranian partners, they have created very difficult situation for Israel. And this time, I believe Israel is trying to drag both Iran and United States into the war. And through this way, they are expecting that by having support from United States and European alliance and regional countries, they can confront with Iran. But on the other hand, Iran is having very serious nuclear technology, and they have very advanced nuclear technology, which is completely indigenous technology. Until this time, Iranian supreme leader has declared use of any mass destruction weapon, including nuclear weapon, as haram or forbidden. But yesterday, Iranian IRGC's general Ahmad Zaki, who is responsible for security of Iranian atomic sites, he, in fact, warns of a shift in Iranian nuclear doctrine, and that is very serious issue for regional and international security. In case of shift in Iranian nuclear doctrine from peaceful use to military grade use, I think that can be very serious threat for regional and international security, and Israel should avoid from such direct confrontation with Iran, and international powers, especially United Nations, must play its effective role in this regard.
Dr. You just said there can be very dire consequences of Iran being pulled into a wider conflict. While I agree with you on that, I would want you to explain this. What's the worst case scenario if Iran is supposedly, God forbid, in a doomsday scenario, if Iran is pulled into an all-out war, what can be the consequences for this region at large? And we are talking about Middle Eastern region, which is already in shambles.
We know that Iran is having a practical experience and field experience of war with Iraq during Saddam period. That war was 8 years war, and that was a very important experience for Iran. And secondly, after that war, Iran is confronting with United States, and they have developed their military capabilities, keeping in view that on the world level they are confronting with the United States, and on regional level they are confronting with Israel. So they have been focused on their ballistic missile program. Till this time, they have developed more than 12 ballistic missiles, and these missiles are having a range of from 200 kilometers to 2,000 kilometers. One of these ballistic missile is Al-Fatah, which is hypersonic missile, and it is having a range of 1,400 kilometer, and Israel is only 1,100 kilometer. And if they are using this hypersonic missile against Israel, they can target any target in Israel in less than 4 seconds. So I believe this hypersonic missile even can carry nuclear warhead. So such capabilities are very dangerous. On the other hand, we know that Israel is also unannounced nuclear power. So if international powers are not coming to play their role and international organizations are remaining isolated, I believe that this will be very dangerous for the region as well as for the peace of whole world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Syed Qandil Abbas, for being guest in our show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break and we'll join you back with last segment of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back. Just like every conflict, this conflict also have a larger geopolitical lens associated with it. There is a real politic behind whatever is happening between Iran and Israel. And when we talk about the larger geopolitics, United States become a very pertinent, a very important part of it in order to discuss the larger developments from that geopolitical angle. I have invited Dr. Ahmad Zaki, who is joining me from Somaliland on Skype. Dr. Ahmad Zaki, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Ahmad Zaki, let's talk about this geopolitical chessboard that we have in front of us at the moment. So, Iran has, in response to whatever has happened between these two sides, has shut down the Strait of Hormuz, has said that they can shut down the Strait of Hormuz in case Israel crosses the red line once again. If that happens, it will stop 30% of the oil supply to the West and to the rest of the world. So how do you see this development, and how significant do you think this strategic maneuver can be?
This was the tension that most of the Western allies and the Western business people, they were worrying about. That's why they were de-escalating the conflict between the Israel and Iran. And the main concern of the European supply route was that this is the state of Hormuz, and if this get disturbed, the 30% of the oil of the world will be disturbed. Eventually, that's going to affect the economy of Europe, and particularly the economy of Asia, especially the West Asian countries.
President Joe Biden finds himself in a very tight corner. Recently, speaking to the media, Donald Trump, the former president, and also one of the very strong contenders for the presidency in the upcoming elections in November 2024, has signaled that it has only happened. The escalations between Israel and Iran could only happen because the United States have shown signs of weaknesses, which it would not have shown under Trump's leadership. So it therefore becomes a very pertinent part of the US politics as well. Do you feel President Joe Biden is facing the heat inside the US politics arena as well?
When it came to the U.S. foreign policy, there is no difference between the Democratic and Republican Party. No matter which president is going to come, the American establishment will always have their stand with Israel, and that will not going to be affected by any political party or any individual leadership in America. And into the other side, they might have a media coverage, they might have soft corner, or might they have the different style of the approaching for the international political system, but actually the political interests of America in terms of foreign policy, it's not dependent on any political party of America. It's always in the hands of the American establishment, which is mostly influenced by the big bucket companies, which are directly influencing the state institutions of the United States of America. And it has nothing to do with personal leadership, whether it's a Trump or whether it's a Putin, whether it's a Trump or whether it's the current president.
Dr. Ahmad Zaki, let's agree on something that is said by many commentators, that US would not support, would not want, would not dream to have an all-out war, another all-out war in the Middle Eastern region. While the United States is engaged to curtail China, to curtail the economic alliances that China is shoring up, and is also trying to curtail the damages that are done by the Russia on the Ukraine's front as well. But on the contrary, in case of this Middle Eastern crisis, it is actually Benjamin Netanyahu who is calling the shots. And suppose if in case of all of this an all-out war breaks down, it's going to be the US that is going to be engulfed in a war that it has not wanted. So don't you think the center of power is shifting from the United States to the Prime Minister of Israel?
That's what I was telling you. When it came to the foreign policy of United States of America, it's not dependent of the president, and it's not dependent of the political party. It's dependent on the establishment and those who are influencing the establishment by investing billions of trillions of dollars into the state institutions. And some of them are having direct connections, and they are very happy for the Benjamin Netanyahu and what he's doing in the Middle East, because it's going to give them a lot of weapons to be sold in the Middle East, not only for Israel, but because of this tension, a lot of Arab countries is going to purchase from American weapons, and that's going to bring billions of dollars to the American economy, which is going to directly benefit for the only companies who are producing the weapons. And when it came to the political behavior of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, it shows that he don't care any of the politics or any of the American foreign policy or their strategy. He always cares about what the big companies can invest in Israel and what he can get out of that. No matter how much Israeli lives are west in the Gaza Strip of Gaza genocide, or how much millions of people are disturbed or removed from their countries, become a refugee into the south corner of the Rafah city in the Gaza, and how many people have been killed, or innocent children and women have been killed. Nobody cares about that when it came to the Middle East conflict, because it is the companies who are investing in the American politics and who are making billions of dollars on the innocent life blood, and that is what's also affecting the Ukraine war.
And Dr. Zaki, your last 1 minute comment on the way Israel has responded to what Iran has done to it on 19th of April, the developments that have been criticized by Iranians. Iranians are negating no actual damage has been done in Iran, and Israel is propelling a very different narrative in the international media. Your 1 minute response on it, sir.
Thank you for that. We were expecting that Israel will definitely respond to the Iranian attack, which was already the response of the earlier attack of the Israelis in the consulate of the Iran in Syria. But their response was not what everyone was expecting. It was just like giving the signal that Israel can respond. They sent 3 drones, and 3 drones have been shot down by the Iranian Air Force. Air forces that it have not made any damage, and Israel didn't declare whether they are going to continue or not. And still, Iran shows that more strain. They don't want to escalate the war, and if Israel continue more, that might increase the tension between the Middle East countries, Iran and Israel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad Zaki, for being guest in our show. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ahmad Zaki was the last guest in our program. And while we have summarized, we have seen in a summary, in a gist, what developments have been between the two sides, it's quite easy and comprehensive to understand that the sufferings, the miseries, the bloodbath hasn't stopped. The flames are still coming out of this Middle Eastern region. The political pot is still simmering. It's time for institutions like United Nations to put their foot down, or else the conflict perhaps may engulf many other countries in the wrath of the war. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.